The audience was buzzing with excitement inside the grand studio of America's Got Talent. The lights flickered, cameras panned across cheering faces, and the iconic panel of judges, Simon Cowell, Sofia Vergara, Heidi Klum, and Howie Mandel, sat ready for another night of surprises. But no one, not even Simon himself, could have guessed that what was about to happen next would become one of the most emotional and unforgettable moments in AGT history. A small boy, maybe 12 years old, walked slowly onto the stage. He wore a simple white shirt, slightly oversized, tucked into worn-out jeans. In his arms, he carried a tiny brown monkey clinging tightly to his shoulder. The boy smiled shyly at the massive audience, while the monkey looked around, blinking curiously under the bright lights. Simon leaned forward, eyebrows raised. "Hello there, what's your name?" The boy's voice was soft, hesitant, yet sincere. "My name is Paulo, sir. And this is Kiko, my best friend." The crowd let out a gentle murmur of, "Ah." The monkey tilted its head, holding Paulo's hand. Simon smiled slightly. "And where are you from, Paulo?" "I'm from the Philippines," the boy replied. "I came here because I want to share something special with everyone." Heidi leaned in. "And what are you going to do for us today?" Paulo looked down at Kiko, then back up at the judges. We're going to perform together. He helped me survive, and now, I want to show everyone how love can turn pain into music." The judges exchanged glances. A monkey performance. It sounded strange, maybe even risky. But the boy's calm eyes carried something deeper, a quiet strength that made everyone fall silent. Simon gave a small nod. "All right, we can't wait to see what you do. Good luck." As Paulo walked to the center of the stage, the audience settled into a deep hush. A soft instrumental track began, gentle guitar strings mixed with the sound of waves and wind. The screen behind him showed clips of forests, the ocean, and the setting sun, scenes that somehow mirrored the boy's story. Paulo knelt down beside Kiko and whispered, "You ready, buddy?" The monkey nodded as if he understood. Then it began. Paulo started to sing, his voice light, pure, and filled with emotion. It was a Filipino lullaby, one that his mother used to sing when he was a baby. His voice trembled slightly at first, but as the melody built, something magical happened. Kiko, the monkey, began to move his hands, tapping rhythmically on a small wooden box. He wasn't just copying, he was keeping the beat, in perfect time with the music. The audience gasped. Cameras zoomed in. The tiny monkey's expressive eyes seemed to glow as he played, his rhythm blending perfectly with the boy's haunting voice. Sophia whispered, "Oh my God, he's really doing it." As the performance continued, images flashed across the screen, scenes of a small boy on a street, barefoot, feeding scraps of bread to a frightened monkey in a cardboard box. The song's meaning grew clearer. This wasn't just a performance. It was a story, their story. Paulo sang the next verse in English, his accent gentle but heartfelt. "When I had nothing, you gave me your hand. When I was broken, you helped me stand. You were just a soul lost like me. But together we found what love could be." Tears started to form in the audience. Even Howie, who was known for his humor, went completely quiet. Simon's usual skeptical expression had softened. He leaned back slowly, eyes fixed on the boy and his monkey, lost in the emotion of the song. Then the chorus hit, a powerful blend of voice and rhythm. Kiko stood on Paulo's shoulder and lifted a tiny hand toward the crowd. It was almost symbolic, like two survivors reaching out to the world. Together, the final note echoed through the hall. Silence followed, deep, powerful silence, before the entire audience rose to their feet, clapping and cheering like never before. Paulo covered his mouth, tears filling his eyes. Kiko jumped into his arms, squeaking excitedly as the audience chanted their names. Sophia had tears streaming down her face. "That was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen." Heidi wiped her eyes. It felt like a movie, but real. Simon sat still for a long moment, staring at the boy. "Paulo," he finally said, his voice unusually soft, "that wasn't just an act. That was a message, a story about love, survival, and hope. You just reminded everyone in this room what kindness looks like." Then he stood up. The crowd screamed in anticipation. Simon Cowell pressed the golden buzzer. Gold confetti exploded from above, raining down on Paulo and Kiko. The boy fell to his knees, sobbing with joy as Kiko clapped his tiny hands, spinning in circles under the golden light. The entire theater erupted, people cheering, judges standing, tears in everyone's eyes. It was the kind of moment that transcended talent. It was pure emotion. The cameras zoomed in on Simon, who walked up to the stage. He knelt beside Paulo and said, "You and your little friend have just made AGT history." The boy couldn't stop crying. "Thank you, sir, thank you so much. We just wanted to show that no one is truly alone." Simon smiled and whispered, "You did." But what no one knew then was the heartbreaking story behind that performance, a story that began years before Paulo ever stepped on that stage. He grew up in a small fishing village in the Philippines. His father had passed away when he was very young, and his mother struggled to feed him and his two younger sisters. Life was harsh. Paulo often helped his mother sell fish by the roadside, singing quietly to attract customers. People called him the singing boy, but behind that small smile, there was always hunger and exhaustion. One rainy night, while taking shelter under a bridge, Paulo heard a faint whimpering sound. He followed it and found a small, trembling monkey trapped in a rusty cage, its fur wet and its eyes filled with fear. Someone had abandoned it after using it for street tricks. Paulo broke the lock using an old nail and freed the monkey. The animal didn't run. Instead, it clung to him tightly, as if sensing his kindness. From that day on, Paulo and the monkey, whom he named Kiko, became inseparable. Every morning, Paulo would sing in the market while Kiko danced or tapped on a wooden box. People began to gather, dropping coins into a small cup. For the first time, Paulo could buy rice and milk for his sisters. They became a small street duo, spreading smiles wherever they went. But life still wasn't easy. One day, Paulo's mother fell seriously ill. He spent all their savings on medicine, but she didn't make it. Her last words were, "Keep singing, my son. Your voice will carry our love." After that, Paulo and Kiko were alone. They slept under awnings, under bridges, sometimes going days without food. Yet, Paulo never stopped singing. Kiko would snuggle against his chest every night, keeping him warm. One afternoon, while they were performing outside a bus terminal, a woman with a camera stopped and filmed them. She was an American tourist. She uploaded the video online, calling it, "The Boy and His Monkey, a Song of Hope." The video went viral. Within days, millions had watched it. Messages of love and support poured in. One comment said, "Get this boy to AGT." A charity organization reached out and arranged for Paulo to fly to Los Angeles. For the first time, he left his country, scared, excited, holding Kiko close as they boarded the plane. He didn't have fancy clothes, no vocal coach, no team. Just his heart and his monkey. When he finally walked onto that AGT stage, he carried not only his dream but his mother's memory, and the hope of every child who had ever been forgotten. After the golden buzzer, news outlets around the world shared their story. "Filipino boy and rescue monkey melt hearts," the headlines read. The clip gained over 200 million views in a week. Fans called them, the Golden Duo. They were invited to perform on several shows, and Paulo used the money to build a small shelter for abandoned animals in his hometown, naming it, Kiko's Haven. His goal was to rescue more creatures like his friend, the one who never left him. Months later, during the AGT finale, Paulo and Kiko returned to perform again. This time, the stage was filled with golden lights and tropical flowers. He sang an original song called, Home. It began with a soft piano. His voice trembled with gratitude. "I had no roof, I had no bed. Just the sky and dreams in my head. But then you came and held my hand. Now I know what it means to stand." Kiko climbed onto his shoulder and raised his tiny paw to the air. The crowd erupted with emotion. People were crying, cheering, shouting their names. Simon was visibly emotional. When the song ended, he said quietly, "You know, sometimes talent shows are about big voices or magic tricks. But tonight, it's about the kind of magic that comes from the heart. Paulo, Kiko, you've already won." They didn't just win hearts. They won the entire season. When the final votes were announced, confetti once again filled the air. Paulo hugged Kiko tightly, whispering, "We did it, Mama. We made it." Months later, back in the Philippines, Paulo used part of his prize money to open a small music school for children who couldn't afford lessons. He called it, Voices of Hope. Every child who entered received free lessons, a warm meal, and a chance to dream, just like he once did. At the opening ceremony, surrounded by the laughter of kids, he sat under a mango tree with Kiko resting on his lap. Reporters asked him what kept him going through all the pain. He smiled softly and said, when life takes everything from you, sometimes it gives you one thing that means more than everything else. For me, that was Kiko. He looked at the monkey and continued, he never left me. He didn't care that I was poor. He just stayed, and because of that love, I found my voice again. The world couldn't get enough of their story. Documentaries were made, songs were written, and people around the globe donated to his animal shelter. Paulo and Kiko became symbols of hope, proof that compassion could change not just lives, but destinies. Years later, Simon Cowell visited the Philippines during a charity event. He met Paulo again, older now, more confident, performing in front of hundreds of smiling children. After the song, Simon hugged him and said, "You're the reason I still do this show." Paulo laughed shyly. "No, sir, you're the reason I believed I could." Simon looked down at Kiko, who was now older, still sitting proudly beside his best friend. "And you, little guy, you're the most talented monkey in the world." Everyone laughed, but there was something deeply moving in that moment. Two people, from two completely different worlds, connected by a shared belief in kindness. As the sun set over the ocean that evening, Paulo sat by the shore with Kiko beside him. The waves crashed gently, and the orange sky reflected in his eyes. He hummed the same lullaby he had once sung on the AGT stage. The melody floated across the wind, blending with the sounds of the sea. Kiko leaned against him, closing his eyes peacefully. Paulo whispered, "You saved me. Buddy, I thought I rescued you, but it was you who rescued me." A single tear slipped down his cheek, not of sadness, but of gratitude. That night, he wrote a song titled, "Two Hearts, One Beat," dedicated to his mother and to the little creature who had changed his life. It became a global hit, spreading across countries and languages, reminding everyone who listened that true love doesn't need words. In interviews, Paulo always said the same thing, kindness is the most powerful music in the world. And whenever he performed, Kiko was always by his side, tapping that same wooden box, keeping the rhythm alive. Years passed, and Paulo became one of the most beloved singers in Southeast Asia. But no matter how many awards he received or how famous he became, he never forgot the streets, the hunger, the nights under the bridge, or the first time he heard that soft whimper in the rain. He carried those memories like melodies, not to dwell in pain, but to remind himself of how far love could take him. One day, as he stood backstage before performing at a massive charity concert, he looked down at Kiko, now a little slower, his fur turning gray. "You ready, old friend?" he whispered. The monkey blinked and pressed his tiny hand against Paulo's cheek. The crowd outside chanted their names. The stage manager signaled. As the lights dimmed and the music began, Paulo stepped into the spotlight once more, not as the scared boy from the streets, but as a man whose voice had become a bridge between hearts. And when the first note rang out, somewhere deep inside, it felt like his mother, Simon, and the entire world were listening again. Because the story of Paulo and Kiko wasn't just about a song. It was about the miracle that happens when two souls, one human, one animal, save each other through love. And on that AGT stage years ago, when golden confetti filled the air and Simon Cowell smiled for the first time in disbelief, it wasn't just a performance that touched millions. It was a reminder that no matter how broken life gets, love always finds a way to sing again.